All right, welcome back to College Football Addiction. A little bit different setting here. I am on vacation, so you're getting me from the mountains of North Georgia. But a really good day for the ACC yesterday, and we'll start with the teams that actually played. But Miami, SMU both took care of business. Clemson won too, but against an opponent that isn't even worth really considering. But Miami and SMU took care of business on the field. SMU very dominant against a Virginia team that I thought they matched up really well against. Kevin Jennings was really good. Perriman was really good. SMU just cruises to victory. And then Miami was really dominant too. I know that it was kind of close at half. I know that they had the pick six where Virginia was looking like they were going to go. Maybe even not Virginia. I'm sorry, where Wake was even looking like they were going to go, maybe take the lead, but the pick six kind of shut the door on that, and then you give up the kick return right from there, and then the rest of the way it was all Miami. Wake is just not an opponent that I really worried about at all for Miami. A little bit different with Syracuse coming up this week. We'll surely talk about that this week. But Wake just not an opponent that I thought had it enough to really keep up with Miami. They were kind of in the first half, but then just all kind of canes going from there. Miami certainly has things to clean up. Any Miami fan that watches this will tell you that I keep it pretty honest on them. And I think Miami fans would say things to get better, things to improve on. Cam with another weird turnover that just is unacceptable for somebody that is in his position. Can't do that in a game that you play a good opponent. I don't think you can do that against Syracuse, but certainly couldn't do that against SMU or if it ends up being Clemson. It wouldn't be Miami Clemson. Can't do that against SMU if you make the title game either. So, but a good day overall for the ACC because they took care of business. But second, because there was so much SEC chaos in front of them. Not just SEC chaos, though. A lot of Big 12 chaos, a lot of teams that are just right ahead of other ACC teams losing as well. And it really opens up the door now for the ACC to potentially get multiple teams into this thing. And that's something that I didn't believe was possible even just 2 days ago, right? If we back up to Friday, I didn't think there was a way that could happen. But man, with so many teams losing ahead of Clemson and so many teams losing just ahead of SMU's got to jump into the top 12 now. And if SMU and Miami are both in that top 10-ish range, which Miami I expect to be even higher, and those two teams meet in Charlotte, the loser has to feel a lot better about getting in. The committee has preached, hey, we're not going to penalize teams for going to the conference championship. We're not going to penalize teams for losing that. And so I think you can say that, but if you would have been ultimately met with an 11-2 Miami versus a 10-2 Alabama, they're going to give the nod to Bama there. I mean, we all know how this works. Or an 11-2 SMU or a 10-2 Ole Miss, they were going to give that nod to Ole Miss. But with so many SEC teams losing, with so many SEC teams dropping yesterday, and so many of those two-loss teams, Texas A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, it really does seem like it opens up the door for that second ACC team to get in. And I'll present one more to you, right? I think if Miami loses, if they lose to Syracuse this weekend, I think they're out, right? Not making the ACC championship would kind of be the nail in their coffin. But if they beat Syracuse, I think Miami might get in even with a loss to SMU. You look at SMU, their only losses being to a BYU team that was playing really, really well, and then a Miami team that's going to be top 5 as well. I really think you got to consider putting SMU in if they lose as well. How about this one? What about Clemson? What about Clemson at this point? Now, I understand their loss to Louisville, kind of unacceptable. Their loss to Georgia, beginning of the year, blowout. I get it. However, since then, or outside of those, not since then, but outside of those, they've done what they needed to do. They beat Pittsburgh on the road. They've taken care of business in conference. They have a massive game against a team that's going to be ranked somewhere around the top 15 in South Carolina. And if they were to win that, which the game is at home, I think they have a great chance to win it. That game's going to be phenomenal this week. We'll talk with both sides, South Carolina and Clemson, this upcoming week on the channel. But if they were to win that one, and enough teams dropped in front of them, I don't even think we need a week of chaos like we just had this week. But if enough teams were to drop in front of them, or if you're Clemson, say Miami loses to a Syracuse this week, and you find yourself back in the ACC championship, I think Clemson now has a path back to the playoff. I mean, shoot, you just win against South Carolina, and you're going to be right there in that mix, right there in that range. I don't think it's a guarantee for you to go just yet, but at this point, if Clemson beats South Carolina and beats them by 10 right? Which I'm not predicting that. South Carolina's been really good. I think that's going to be a pretty close, fun game. They beat them by 10. And we just saw Alabama get nearly shut out by Oklahoma. Does that head-to-head of that margin of victory for Clemson, is that not a little more impressive than what Alabama's got? Is that 10-2 not a little bit better than that 9-3 that Bama's walking around with? Um, and so, yeah, I think I'm starting to lean toward Clemson having a chance to get back in this as well. And again, a week ago, none of us on here thought that the ACC was anything more than a one big conference, a one big league, and that's looking like, because of the chaos that's happened yesterday, and because the ACC teams have continued to take care of business. Miami blew it against Georgia Tech. SMU did lose to BYU early. Clemson certainly didn't do their part by losing to Louisville, but it does look like there's a path for the ACC to get two teams in. Is there a path to get three teams in? At this point, you really have to need more chaos, I think. I think that the committee is going to do their very best to get multiple SEC teams in. Obviously, I think that at this point, Georgia's pretty much a lock. I think Tennessee's pretty much a lock. I think Texas, unless they lose to A&M and are out, then I think Texas is pretty much a lock. And I think they're going to try and get one more. I think they're going to try and slide one more team in, right? An Alabama or an Ole Miss, even though they've got 3 losses. We'll see. Can't guarantee that, but that's my vibe, is that they're going to try and get that fourth team in. But again, Clemson blows out South Carolina or something. It makes it really tricky. It makes it tough to justify putting that in. Wouldn't it be something? I'm not predicting this, but if the ACC managed to get 3 teams in, and that ended up being the same as the SEC this year. The only way the ACC gets 3 in is if the SEC only gets 3. I think the Big Ten is settled with 4. I think Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana are all locked in. I think Notre Dame's going unless they drop to USC. Obviously, your group of 5 champions going, and your SEC champion, your ACC champion, and you're running out of spots, right? So Big 12, and then you got 3 spots left. Who gets 2? Who gets 1? I do think that there's a good chance that the ACC could get multiple in, and we'll see kind of how it shakes out. But 2 is looking likely to me. 3 would be crazy. It doesn't really matter to me. Again, I think the loser of the ACC championship is probably in some trouble, but who knows, man? Who knows with this crazy year? Who knows what kind of chaos could happen this weekend? I think the committee has tried their very best to position these SEC teams and these Big Ten teams really well, and they've really held losses against the ACC teams. And at this point, the SEC and the Big 12 just keep losing, and so they're not going to be able to do that forever. And so, really, honestly, a good day for the ACC, a good day for the conference. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Do you think the ACC is getting multiple in? You think there's any outside shot of them getting 3? And I'll tell you, if SMU beats Miami by a field, the best way I think they could get 3 would be, because they're going to want Miami in because of their brand. I was about to wrap up, but I'll tell you this. They're going to want Miami in because of their brand and their quarterback. Their offense is a ton of fun, and Miami, kind of deserves that. And so the best way I think to get 3 in would be for SMU to win the ACC championship by like 3. Incredibly good game, incredibly close game. Miami sneaks in on the back end. And then Clemson needs to blow out South Carolina, and then needs like a game or 2 to go in their favor. Like have Alabama lose to Auburn this year in the Iron Bowl, or have Vandy upset Tennessee to knock them out, or have Georgia Tech, another conference opponent, give Georgia their 3rd loss. And then I think Clemson could potentially sneak in too. So there's enough chaos out there that could happen. Will we get it 2 weeks in a row? I obviously can't guarantee that, but listen, fun day, a good day for the ACC. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. How many teams end up making it from this conference? Who wins the championship? We'll talk about that next week. We'll preview the Miami game. We'll preview the Clemson game this week. We'll talk about the Florida State game. I know that one's probably already been decided, but we'll talk about all the big ACC matchups, Georgia Tech. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in to College